Broadcasting on our Facebook fan page there and on our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, Imhotep. So welcome to the African History Network show. It is Monday, July 12th, 2021, and we are live. It's a very busy day today, trying to get caught up on some work. Taught two online classes on Sunday, and then did my radio show Sunday night right here. You know, we're here 6 days a week, the African History Network show. All right, so on today's show, as I was saying, we're going to give you an update on what's going on, the developments in Texas. The Texas state legislature, Democrats in the Texas state legislature are really putting up a fight. And this is something that a lot of people have wanted to see many Democrats do. If you, on Sunday's show, I played the segment of Roland Martin Unfiltered, where I was on Roland's panel. I'm a panelist usually each Friday on Roland Martin Unfiltered. And we were talking about the meeting that Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris had with legacy civil rights organizations. And I talked about how they weren't doing anything. Well, at least based upon the interview that Roland did with Janetta B. Cole of the National Chair of the National Council of Negro Women, and Melanie Campbell of National Black Civic Participation. They weren't going to do anything strike fear in the hearts of anybody to change their vote, to put pressure on, really put pressure on Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema. So what we're seeing here in Texas is something that needs to happen in a lot of these state legislatures where Republicans are in control and are pushing the big lie and are trying to pass these voter restriction bills, and they know they are lying. They know they are lying. They know there is no widespread voter fraud. They know this, but they're very silent on the cases of voter fraud that was committed by Trump supporters, voting for dead relatives and things like this. They're very silent on that. There was an article from I'm going to find it here, from the Washington Post, and it dealt with the truth about voter fraud. Now, keep in mind that Trump's second Attorney General, William Barr, said they looked and looked and looked. They couldn't find any widespread voter fraud, especially anything that would change any election results. So we see 389 bills in 48 state legislatures across the country being pushed by Republicans, pushing this big lie. And this is a coordinated effort. Now, if we go back just for a second here, and we look at the article here from the Washington Post, May 4th, 2021, by Philip Bump for the Washington Post. Despite GOP rhetoric, there have been fewer than 24 charged cases of voter fraud since the 2020 election. Despite GOP rhetoric, all this yin yang they're talking, all this lying on Fox News and Newsmax, okay, despite all this stuff, when we actually look at what's being charged, when we look at the voter fraud that you claim that exists as being charged, okay, we're looking at fewer than 24 cases. This means that one person has faced charges for every 10 million votes cast. One person has faced charges for every 10 million votes cast. This is the reality. Okay, so we're going to talk about what's going on in Texas. We're going to deal with a quick update on Haiti. On Sunday's show, we had Abiomi Ezekwe, editor of the Pan-African Newswire, back on the show. Go listen to Sunday's show. It's archived at our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network, and my YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, Imhotep. And then we'll also, also on Sunday's show, we talked about Zaila Avant Garde, who won the Scripps National Spelling Bee. But I talked about two African-American girls who competed in spelling bees before her. Magnolia Cox in 1936, who made it to like she was like the 5th finalist, something like that, Magnolia Cox. But also Marie C. Bolden, Marie C. Bolden. And Marie C. Bolden won the first national spelling bee in 1908. She was an African-American girl. She was 14 years old. She won the first national spelling bee in 1908. It was organized by the Teachers Union, the National Education Association. And this, when she won, this created racial controversy in America. We're going to talk about that story also. All right, now on the African History Network show, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right now it's corrects wrong behavior. What you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you and get away with is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you have been taught about yourself. What you've been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. So when you control the radius of a man or woman's thoughts, you can control the circumference of his or her actions, because the mind can't do or teach what it doesn't know. Now, we deal with a number of different topics here on the African History Network show. We deal with current events and history and politics, education, economic empowerment, entrepreneurship, love, sex, health issues, and much, much more, and relationships, and much, much more. Sign up for our email newsletter. Text the word Kemet, K-E-M-E-T, to 22828 to sign up for our email newsletter. Text the word Kemet, K-E-M-E-T, to 22828 to sign up for our email newsletter. Also visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Okay. All right. That's a fraud going on in Arizona. Do some research before you post on this timeline. Okay. That's a fraud going on in Arizona. If you don't know the difference, you shouldn't be on social media. And they know who I'm talking to. Don't come on here with no BS. Okay. 313-778-7600 is the calling number if you have a quick question or comment. All right. Now, I want to go to clip 1. This is from ABC World News Tonight. Texas Democrats break quorum in special session over voting rights. Let's go to clip 1, Shakita. State lawmakers were heading to Washington, D.C. amid pushback from across the aisle. Okay, you got the clip. All right, press play when you have the clip. Okay, now if we look at this, I'm going to pull up this graphic here on the screen.
We're going to turn next to the battle.
Go ahead.
In this country over voting rights tonight in Texas, one of the states trying to enact strict new voting laws. Democratic lawmakers are now leaving the state to block the vote on a Republican measure, all in their effort, they say, to protect voting access in Texas. ABC's Rachel Scott tonight on what this could mean for the larger debate across this country.
Tonight, Texas Democratic lawmakers fleeing the state, once again using the only tool they have left to block one of the most restrictive voting bills in the country. They say they're in it for the long haul.
As long as it takes to kill this legislation, whether that is a few days or whether that's for the remainder of the special session, that's up to the Republicans.
The bill would ban 24-hour polling locations and drive-through voting, which have increased turnout among minorities, prohibit election officials from sending absentee ballot applications to people who have not requested them, and give partisan poll watchers greater access to polling sites. Tonight, Republican Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick telling our station KTRK Democrats are abandoning their responsibility.
That's not how you conduct business in government. That's anarchy at the Capitol.
But Vice President Kamala Harris cheering them on.
I applaud them standing for the rights of all Americans and all Texans to express their voice through their vote unencumbered.
All right, Rachel Scott, tonight those Texas lawmakers are heading to the nation's capital. They say they're willing to stay there for weeks if they have to, all to try to block this Texas bill.
Yes, and David, these Democrats are trying to make the point that this is much larger than Texas. Already, we have seen 16 states pass laws that make it tougher for people to vote. This is about putting pressure on Congress to pass voting rights legislation. And tomorrow, President Biden will be in Philadelphia to make the case. David?
Rachel Scott, live in Washington. Rachel, thank you.
So we know that President Joe Biden is going to give a major speech on voting rights, the need for the People Act to pass. Hopefully he'll put pressure on Jim Crow Joe Manchin and clueless Kristen Sinema. Okay, the two Democratic senators that are actually holding, if they vote to amend the filibuster, then you can get the For the People Act passed with 50 votes, 50 vote tie, and Vice President Kamala Harris having the tiebreaker vote as opposed to 60. Now, Joe Manchin keeps having these white unity dreams, these dreams of white Republicans signing on to vote for the People Act, but he got slapped upside his head 2 or 3 weeks ago, when not a single Republican voted to proceed to a debate on the Senate floor for the People Act. They all voted no. He said there were 7 that were going to vote yes for it. They always vote with Democrats. They all voted no. So he's having dreams of white people's past. That's Joe Manchin of West Virginia. If we look at this article here from Texas Tribune, okay. Texas Tribune. Texas House Democrats flee the state in move that could block voting restriction bill, bring legislature to a halt. A majority of Democrats in the Texas House left for Washington, D.C. Monday afternoon in a bid to again deny Republicans the quorum needed to pass new voter restrictions with 26 days left in a special legislative session called largely for that purpose. So they're going to be gone like 3 weeks, maybe more. Okay. This is a gangster move. Now, see, this is the type of fighting that you have to do. You have to use every tool, because, see, Republicans are not playing. They don't care about the Constitution. They don't care about fairness. They're pushing a big lie. And we're coming up on a break. When we come back for the break, you're going to hear one of the Republicans in the state legislature, in the Texas state legislature, admit he has no evidence of voter fraud. He's going to admit it. So why are you pushing these voter restriction bills? Okay. This is a massive coordinated effort coming also from the Heritage Action Committee, I think it is, which is a arm of the Heritage Foundation. Okay, we'll talk about all this on the other side of the break. You listen to the African History Network show right here on 910 a.m. the Superstation and Future Radio. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. Stand by. Share this broadcast on social media platforms. Invite your friends to tune in also. Stand by. How's everybody doing? Okay, everybody stand by. All right, if you like this type of information, you can support the African History Network, $ the AHN show through Cash App, $ the AHN show through Cash App, or through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN show, paypal.me/the AHN show. Stand by. Okay, everybody, back from break in 3 minutes. Stand by, everybody. So here's our official Cash App account, $ the AHN show through Cash App, $ the AHN show, SHOW through Cash App.
The Superstation, Detroit's only African-American talk radio.
Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 9:10 a.m. The Superstation, the Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Monday, July 12th, 2021, and we are live. We're broadcasting on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network, and our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, IMHOTEP. So everybody who's watching on our social media platforms, be sure to hit the like button on the video and share this broadcast on your social media platforms also. Okay, so right before the break, we were talking about the what's going on in Texas, and about 50 or 51 Democrats in the Texas state legislature walking out. And this is a powerful move, and they're headed to Washington, D.C. also. If we look at this piece here from the Texas Tribune, and let me go back to this. We're going to go to clip 2 in just a minute here, Shakita. Texas House Democrats flee the state in move that could block voting restrictions bill, bring legislature to a halt. This is from July 12th, 2021. Democrats in the Texas House of Representatives left the state on Monday afternoon en route to Washington, D.C. in a bid to deny Republicans the quorum needed to pass new voter restrictions, with 26 days left in a special legislative session called largely for that purpose, upping the ante in both the legislative fight at home and the national debate over voting rights. Most House Democrats boarded 2 planes out of Austin, Texas, headed for the U.S. Capitol without a set return date. At least 51 of the 67 Democratic representatives, the number needed to break quorum, 51 is the number needed to break quorum, were in the process of leaving Monday afternoon, most arriving at Austin Bergstrom International Airport Monday to board chartered flights, and that departed around 3:10 p.m. The House is set to reconvene Tuesday morning, Tuesday, July 13th, but the absent Democrats would mean there will not be enough members present to conduct business under House rules. Democratic leaders said in a joint statement released on Monday, "Today, Texas House Democrats stand united in our decision to break quorum and refuse to let the Republican-led legislature force through dangerous legislation that would trample on Texans' freedom to vote." Now, with the national political spotlight on Texas efforts to further restrict voting, the Democratic exodus offers them a platform to continue pleading with Congress to act on restoring federal protections for voters of color. This would be the For the People Act and the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, but especially the For the People Act. In Texas, the decamping will mark a more aggressive stance for Democrats to block Republican legislation, further tightening the state's voting rules as the GOP works against thinning statewide margins of victory. So what's happening here is that Texas is becoming less and less white. The population of Texas is becoming less and less white. And you have Republicans trying to maintain power at all costs. Republicans are in the majority in the Texas state legislature, but the population of Texas is becoming less white, more people of color, more African Americans, more Latinos, and then also skewing younger as well, college age students and things like this. And Republicans know that these people will vote them out of office. All right. I want to go to clip 2 here. This is from the readout with Joanne Reed. And okay, hold on. We'll go to clip 3. We'll go to clip 3. Sherilyn Ifill on voting rights. It's Congress' job to protect that right. She was speaking with Sherilyn Ifill of the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. She was speaking with Joanne Reed on the readout today. Let's go to clip 3.
Ifill, NAACP Legal Defense Fund president. Can you just lay out the stakes for us, Sherilyn? If Democrats fail to pass federal voting legislation to protect the rights of people in the state, you just heard what they're doing in Texas, to vote, what happens?
Democracy is very much in peril, Joy, and I'm not exaggerating. So we have lost key tools that we had under the Voting Rights Act, first Section 5 in 2013. Last week, the Supreme Court weakened the litigation tool we have, Section 2. And that means that we have less ability to challenge the discriminatory voter suppression laws passing at the state level. We, of course, are suing Georgia. We're suing Florida. We'll see what yet happens in Texas. These laws are popping up all over the country, so we are playing whack-a-mole with litigation. And it's not going to be possible. Litigation, as we know, is slow and expensive. And frankly, is not going to be concluded, certainly not in time for the 2022 primary elections. But more importantly, it's really about democracy. We essentially have a coterie of elected officials around the country who are engaged in a concerted effort to try to keep members of the population, citizens, from voting, and particularly Black and brown citizens. I know we all talk about this as partisan. I know we talk about Democrats and Republicans, but who are the voters being targeted? The voters being targeted are Black voters, brown voters, elderly voters, disabled voters. That's what we see happening. And that conduct is illegal. It violates federal law. But it's happening at such a quick pace, and it's happening in so many states, that it will be very difficult to stop it unless we get federal legislation and Congress steps up and plays the role that the framers of the 14th and 15th Amendments to the Constitution thought Congress should hold. They thought they should have the power to enforce the provisions of the 14th and 15th Amendments, the equal protection of laws, and to be free to vote without discrimination based on race or color. It's Congress's job to protect that right.
Oh, okay. So Sherilyn Ifill, who was in the meeting last Thursday, that was Thursday, July 8th. The meeting took place at the White House with President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris when the legacy civil rights organizations met with them. She was interviewed today by Joy Reid on the readout, talking about what's going on in Texas also, okay? And Sherilyn Ifill talked about protecting voting rights as GOP voter suppression laws spread nationwide. Okay, so that's what she was talking about. We have clip 2 here. I'm going to go to that in just a second. This is the main clip I wanted to go to. That's the main clip I wanted to go to next. But I want to go back to, I want to flip over to this piece here from abcnews.com, talking about what's going on in Texas. And if you follow me on on Facebook, the African History Network on Facebook, the African History Network, you know, I've been posting articles about what's going on in Texas. Texas Democrats to break quorum in special session over voting rights. For the second time since May, Texas House Democrats will break quorum in protest against state Republicans' push to revise the election and voting laws in the Lone Star State. The much speculated move was officially announced by Democrats Monday afternoon, a day before the Texas House of Representatives was slated to be back in session to continue working through the items set by Governor Greg Abbott, who's a Republican, for the ongoing 30-day special session agenda. Okay, 30-day special session agenda. Okay. Today, Texas House Democrats stand united in our decision to break quorum and refuse to let a Republican-led legislature force through dangerous legislation that would trample on Texans' freedom to vote. A joint statement from several high-profile Texas House Democrats read. Now, the group of lawmakers, including Texas House Democrat Caucus Chair Chris Turner, Mexican-American Legislative Caucus Chair Rafael Anchia, Texas Legislative Black Caucus Chair Nicole Collier, Legislative Study Group Caucus Chair Garnett Coleman, and others also announced plans to head to Washington, D.C. as they break quorum. Quote, "We are now taking the fight to our nation's capital. We are living on borrowed time in Texas. We need Congress to act now. We need Congress to act now to pass the For the People Act. We need Congress to act now to pass the For the People Act and the John Lewis Voting Rights Act to protect Texans, but not just to protect Texans, to protect Americans all across the country, regardless of race. In a lot of these Republican state legislatures, Democrats need to do this and walk out and all go to Washington, D.C., all go and pay a visit to Senator Joe Manchin, okay, and Senator Kristen Sinema, okay. And then the other thing is, as I said on Roland Show on Friday, as I said on this show yesterday, there has to be massive pressure on corporations. Now, there were corporations that spoke out in the summer of 2020 when you had these protests, over the killing of George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter protests, and and they talked about, and you had corporations that talked about they're donating money and then they stand with Black Lives Matter, all this stuff, things like this, right? Well, when you deal with the laws and policies that create conditions, when you deal with changing the conditions today, you're dealing with changing the laws and policies that are in place. Well, you change them through who you put in office. You change them through the vote, because all the problems that we complain about are usually the effects of bad public policies. And they were policies that were put in place by either people who were elected into office or people who were appointed by people who were elected into office. So whether it's the judge, whether it's the federal judge that ruled in Georgia when people are challenging SB 202, the voter restriction bill in Georgia, and a federal judge just upheld SB 202. It was a Trump appointed judge. Okay, a Trump appointed federal judge. Well, he was nominated by Trump, and then he's confirmed in the U.S. Senate. But Republicans had a majority in the U.S. Senate at the time, and they confirmed him. But there were 103 vacancies on the federal bench for federal judge positions. There were 103 vacancies when Donald Trump became president through the Electoral College, because he won Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania by 78,000 votes, because people are too lazy to take their asses out and go vote and keep them out of office, because they listen to Simple Simon ass people on social media who lied to them and told them they didn't vote. Half those people they were listening to were probably Russian bots. Half those people they were listening to were probably Russian bots. Or they were people telling them, we're going to vote for Jill Stein because Jill Stein going to do an executive order and get reparations for us. In December 2015, Jill Stein is in Russia sitting across from the table with Vladimir Putin. And to the right of Jill Stein was Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, who became Donald Trump's national security advisor. And you don't think all this stuff is connected? Okay, whatever. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You don't think all this stuff is connected, and you can't do an executive order for reparations based upon Article 1, Section 9, Clause 7 of the U.S. Constitution, because Congress controls the powers of the purse. Congress controls the ability to tax and spend. So anybody telling you that they're going to get a president to do an executive order for reparations is lying to you. They're lying to you. So all this is connected. There were 103 vacancies on the federal bench. Why were there 103 vacancies? Because when Democrats lost control of the Senate in 2014, Mitch McConnell blocked President Obama's nominations to the federal bench. He didn't just block Merrick Garland as the Supreme Court nomination. He blocked President Obama's nominations to the federal bench. So there were 103 vacancies on the federal bench. You realize Donald Trump got about 225 federal judges confirmed, and these are lifetime appointments. They can be there for the next 30, 40 years, ruling on cases. These are lifetime appointments. Trump nominated about 1/4 of the federal judges. So I want to go to this second clip here. This is one I wanted. This is from the readout with Joanne Reed. Texas legislature Democrats leaving the state to protest Texas GOP voter suppression bills is discussed. Okay, let's go to this clip.
In the readout tonight, with Texas Democrats taking a major stand for voting rights. For the second time this year, the Democratic House members walked out of the Capitol and left the state in protest of Republicans' draconian efforts to pass voter suppression laws during their legislative suppression session. The Texas Democrats plan to spend their time here in the Capitol, the nation's capital instead, pushing for federal voting legislation to protect voters. It is a dramatic yet effective move that the National Democratic Party would do well to try and pay attention to, seeing as they only have a few more weeks until the Senate goes on a month-long recess, taking what could be America's last chance to salvage free and fair elections with them. In a statement, the Texas House Democrats said, quote, "We are living on borrowed time in Texas. We need Congress to act now, to pass the For the People Act and the John Lewis Voting Rights Act to protect Texans and all Americans from the Trump Republicans' nationwide war on democracy. The lawmakers risk being arrested. Absent lawmakers can be legally compelled to return to the state capitol. To that end, the Texas Republican speaker said, quote, "The Texas House will use every available resource under the Texas Constitution to secure a quorum." Democrats are protesting two bills, one in the House and one in the Senate. They include a ban on drive-through voting and 24-hour voting, new ID requirements for mail-in ballots, a ban on distributing unsolicited mail-in ballot applications, and a limit on voter assistance that could make it harder for voters with disabilities to vote. The Democrats' walkout in May was successful in killing a provision that would limit Sunday voting, a day when many Black congregations encourage members to take their souls to the polls after church. Both bills advanced through committee on Sunday after 24 hours of testimony and debate, with many Texans waiting hours to testify.
Texas has a long and ugly and racist history of voter suppression that continues to silence the many votes and voices of everyday Texans.
SB 1 continues to be nothing but an attack on Texans' voting rights under the guise of preserving election integrity. Nothing but a way to silence the Black, brown, and young voices that showed up to vote in record numbers last fall.
The way this reads is voter suppression because it does not accommodate for my disability.
As Texas House Democratic Chair Chris Turner aptly said, you just can't make this up. Republicans are passing anti-voter legislation overnight to prohibit Texans from casting a ballot overnight. Now, while Republicans claim they're fighting for so-called election integrity, the author of the bill admitted during this weekend's hearing that he didn't know of any voter fraud that happened in 2020.
I know that we heard testimony that there was difficulty getting election workers and poll watchers, but I don't know about evidence of fraud. That's a pretty recent election.
Joining me now is former HUD Secretary Julian Castro, who is now an MSNBC political analyst, and Texas Democratic State Representative John Boosie III, who joins me by phone. And I first want to welcome you to the MSNBC family. I still want to call you Secretary Castro.
It's great to be with you, Joy.
Thank you for being here. Let's talk about this. I mean, in 2020, you saw the highest voter turnout, I think, in nearly 30 years in Texas.
Yeah,
it was a successful election.
Absolutely.
So what do you ascribe this zeal on the part of Republicans to make it harder to vote to?
Well, they see that Texas is changing. It's the fear of the future, the demographic change that all of us have heard about over the years, the fact that in 2018, they lost 12 state house seats, 2 state senate seats, 2 congressional seats. They see what's happening in big counties like Harris County. They're afraid, especially of black and brown communities, voting at record levels, and they want to engage in this voter suppression point shaving system, whether it's banning drive-through voting or 24-hour voting or other ways to expand the franchise. And they're carrying out the big lie of Donald Trump.
Yeah. And Representative Boosie, you would all have to stay out. There's more than 50 of you. I think 51 got on planes and headed out. Another 7 or left in other ways. I know that you are driving out of Texas. Y'all would have to stay out for about 30 days throughout the whole special session in order to deny a quorum. Is that the plan? Is the plan to stay out of the state for 30 days?
It absolutely is. We're committed to being gone as long as it takes. That's, in fact, why I drove. We wanted my family to come with me, which I think shows the commitment that we're making. We're going to be in D.C. We're going to be putting pressure on Congress to act, and we need them to act. It's not just Texas. It's happening all over the South, and it's time for the Congress to pass the For the People Act and the John Lewis Voting Rights Act.
And can you confirm that one of the reasons that you all are not going to, for instance, West Virginia or Arizona, where you could, in theory, put a lot of pressure in person on the senators, even though they're in Washington right now, concerns about the governors there, Republican governors, forcing you all back to Texas?
That's been a part of our conversations. We are concerned that would happen. You know, there's a concerted effort to promote Donald Trump's big lie and pass legislation. And these states we're seeing it happen all over here. So you never know what they'll do next when it comes to any means necessary to bring us back to pass these bills that will hurt access to the ballot box.
And let me play Texas Governor Abbott. This is him explaining why he would like to see drive-through voting banned.
With regard to the drive-through voting, listen, this violates the fundamentals of what the way that voting integrity has always been achieved, and that is the sanctity of the ballot box. If you do drive-through voting, you're going to have people in the car with you, and it could be somebody from your employer or somebody else who may have some coercive effect on the way that you would cast your ballot.
Have you ever heard of anything like that? Somebody being in the car to do what? I mean, so let me ask Representative Boosie and then Julian Castro.
No, of course not. They're making up excuses. We saw in testimony over the weekend that Harris County, more women chose to use drive-through voting. This is an attack on women. It's an attack on black and brown communities. And they're trying to make access to the ballot box harder so they can hold on to the power that they have. And that's exactly what Secretary Castro was talking about.
You worked as HUD secretary, so you dealt with a lot of urban communities, places like Harris County that is huge, has Houston in it. They're talking about putting one ballot drop box there.
Oh, yes, absolutely ridiculous. One drop box for a county that has, 4 or 5 million people, and you might have a county that has 10,000.
Yeah.
And, one drop box each. What they're trying to do is to make it as hard as possible for especially black and brown communities and also people with disabilities, for instance, many senior citizens as well, to vote. And I think that Governor Abbott also is worried about his potential primary challenge.
Sure.
He has 2 challengers. All of a sudden, he is Donald Trump incarnate.
Yeah.
And he's carrying out this big lie. Unfortunately, we have fortunately, I should say, we have legislators who are willing to use every tool in the toolbox. And I hope that that's going to inspire some of the folks here in D.C.
Okay, pause right there. He said, I hope that's going to inspire some people here in D.C., especially Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia and Senator Kristen Sinema of Arizona, who, and Kristen Sinema, if you read the op-ed she did talking about the filibuster, she has no understanding of the history of the filibuster, but she makes dumb blondes look like Rhodes Scholars. I'm just saying, that's how ignorant she is. Read this piece here also from NBC News. Texas Democrats flee in effort to block GOP-backed voting restrictions. Texas Democrats flee state in effort to block GOP-backed voting restrictions. All right, I want to go to, we're going to go to clip number, I think this is clip 4, Shakita dealing with Haiti. This is, we can go to CBS Evening News. Haiti assassination suspect accused of seeking power. So you have a doctor who they are saying is involved in this plot. A Haitian with Florida connections is the alleged mastermind behind the assassination of President Jovenel Moise, according to authorities. Dr. Christian Emmanuel Sanan is accused of wanting to assume the presidency himself. Okay, let's go to this clip. Oh, you know what? Hold on. I think I got to send that to you. Okay. Well, let me do that. We'll send that to you. We'll go to that in just a second here. So I'm going to flip over to the updates also from the New York Times. So New York Times has had good updates all throughout the day. Now, you have some people, and also go listen to the show that we did yesterday, Sunday, and Abayomi Ezekwe, editor of the Pan-African Newswire, was our guest once again on the show to really go through and break down some new developments dealing with Haiti. So, you know, you have some people who are questioning the way this whole plot is unfolding, and each day it becomes more layered and more curious as well. Okay, I just sent those to you. Each day is becoming more layered and more curious also. All right. I'm going to pull up I'm going to go and flip over here to these updates. But we see on Sunday, ABC News reported Haiti experiences fuel, food shortages, and growing turmoil. Okay, we know that there is a dispute really over who's in charge in Haiti, who's the next in line. There's a dispute over that also. So it's real chaos. And then there was a rumor that the U.S. embassy was giving out U.S. visas also. That was over the weekend. So we're going to go to these updates here. But the doctor named as a suspect in the president's killing said he was, quote unquote, sent by God. You know, as I dig deeper into this and more information comes out, it causes me to have more questions. I'm not really getting questions answered. It's causing me to have more questions. So the accusation that a Florida-based doctor, let me know when we have it queued up. We got clip 4 queued up. The accusation that a Florida-based doctor was a central figure in the assassination of President Jovenel Moise of Haiti was met on Monday, July 12th, with bewilderment by some who knew him and surprised by prominent Haitian Americans who said he had not been known as a major political player. Okay. All right. Do we have the clip queued up? All right. We're going to go this clip here in just a second. Just press play when you have it queued up. We run out of time. At the same time, a university professor who met with the doctor twice last month said that he had spoken then of being sent by God to take over the Haitian presidency. Some 24 people have been arrested in the killing, but yeah, I just emailed it to you. Some 24 people have been arrested in the killing, but Haitian officials have placed the doctor, whose name is Christian Emmanuel Sanan, he's 63 years old, at the center of the investigation. Okay, let me pull up I want to pull up the updates here on the here we go, from the New York Times. All right, let me flip over to this on the screen share. Okay, so these are updates from New York Times. Haitian officials say U.S.-based suspect in president's killing was seeking power. All right, so you have Christian Emmanuel Sanan, Dr. Christian Emmanuel Sanan, the Florida-based doctor, was arrested in Haiti. And let me see here. Yeah, check your email. Check your spam folder. I just sent the email to you. It's clip number 4 and clip number 5, CBS Evening News and ABC News. All right, now, just 1 second. Let me flip over to this here. Let me close out these tabs. Okay, so the accusation that a doctor, that a Florida-based doctor was a central figure in the assassination of President Jovenel Moïse of Haiti was met on Monday with bewilderment by some who knew him and surprised by prominent Haitian Americans who said he had not been known as a political figure. Now, some 24 people have been arrested in the killing, but Haitian officials have placed the doctor, Christian Emmanuel Sanan, 63 years old, at the center of an investigation that has stretched out from Haiti to Colombia and the United States. Okay, so as I dig deeper into this and more information comes out, it's just the whole thing just causes me to have more questions. There's one report by one person that knows him named Michael Plancher, who's a civil engineering professor. Let's see, a former neighbor of the doctors in Florida, Stephen Brose, 65 years old, said, quote, he was always trying to figure out ways to make Haiti more self-sufficient, but assassinating the president, no way. But then in a telephone interview on Monday, Professor Michael Plancher, a civil engineering professor at the University, Quisqueya University in Port-au-Prince, said he had received a call from out of the blue to attend a meeting with Dr. Sanan, who he was told was planning a political campaign. Professor Plancher said he had never heard of the doctor, but decided to attend the meetings. Okay. Now they go on to say that he said he was sent by God. He was sent on a mission of God to replace President Moïse. Professor Michael Plancher said, quote, he said the president would be resigning soon. He didn't say why. Okay, he said the president will be resigning soon. He did not say why. He said he will implement, referring to Dr. Sanan, he said he will implement a Marshall Plan to run the country. He wanted to change French as an official language and replace it with English. He seemed a bit crazy. I didn't want to participate anymore. Okay, so this whole thing, read the updates from the New York Times. This whole thing is crazy. We're out of time here on 910 AM Superstation WFDL. Follow me on my Facebook fan page, The African History Network, and my YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep. We're going to keep broadcasting. I'm going to play the clips that we couldn't get to play here. And if you like this type of information, you support the African History Network, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, $ the AHN Show through Cash App. then also through PayPal, paypal.me/TheAHNShow, paypal.me/TheAHNShow. This helps us keep doing the research, stay on the air, keep broadcasting. We're here 6 days a week. This is our official Cash App account, $TheAHNShow, SHOW, and it'll show my name, Michael, and has my picture there. These other ones are fake African History Network Cash App accounts. Okay, remember, right now is correct your own behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. Peace. All right, stand by, everybody. Stand by. Let me get these clips queued up because I sent them to her, and for some reason they didn't go through. Oh, it went to her voicemail, her spam folder or something. All right, we'll be here for a few more minutes. I want to try to get through. I had a bunch of other topics I wanted to deal with today, but I knew it's hard to get all these topics in. So the rest of these other topics dealing with like the statue coming down in Virginia of General Robert E. Lee and Thomas Stonewall Jackson, all of that we'll get to tomorrow. Then also we see that Jamaica is going to petition Great Britain for reparations as well. So we'll try to squeeze those in on tomorrow's show. I want to go to this clip here. This is from CBS Evening News. Haiti assassination suspect accused of seeking power.
Now to Haiti, where the investigation into the president's assassination is turning up more bizarre details every day. The focus has now shifted to a man with ties to the U.S. and a questionable background. CBS's Mola Lenghi reports tonight from the Haitian capital, Port-au-Prince.
Tonight, new details about one of the alleged masterminds behind the brazen assassination of President Maurice. Authorities say 63-year-old Christian Emmanuel Sanon, a Haitian based in Florida, played a key role in the scheme and planned to assume the presidency himself. A raid on his home revealed 20 boxes of bullets, a list of the hit squad members, and a DEA hat, according to police. DEA operations, everybody back up, stand down. The attackers claimed to be DEA agents when entering the president's compound last Wednesday. Sanon has spoken out against Haiti's leaders in the past.
Where is the leadership of Haiti?
But exactly how this doctor and pastor, who once filed for bankruptcy, became the central figure in the plot remains unclear. Sanon is alleged to have hired the 26 Colombians involved in the attack through CTU Security, a Florida-based security firm run by a Venezuelan. Most of the Colombians alleged to have been involved have been arrested, as have 2 Haitian Americans who claim they were hired as translators. But just how the assassins breached 3 security checkpoints is still unknown, and none of the president's guards were wounded in the violent attack, raising the possibility the attackers had inside help. Meanwhile, Haiti is on edge. Today, Haitians chanting Joe Biden gathered outside the U.S. Embassy, clamoring to leave the country.
Security's bad.
It's very you don't
bad.
Feel safe?
Yeah. That's the reason. The president has a lot of security. They was killed them.
So if they can kill the president, then of course they can kill anybody else, you're saying?
Exactly. That's the reason we want to leave it.
Where do you want to go?
USA. At USA.
Well, U.S. officials, including the FBI, met with Haitian authorities Sunday to discuss the investigation. Meanwhile, today, the White House did not rule out sending U.S. troops here if the situation on the ground deteriorates any further, Nora.
Mola Lenghi, thank you.
Okay, that's CBS Evening News. That's Mola Lenghi reporting for the CBS Evening News in Haiti. Now, also you have retired soldiers in Colombia say they were recruited for work in Haiti. So they said they were recruited by Duvernay Capador, who's a retired, who's a former Colombian soldier also. The retired soldiers trusted Duvernay Capador because he was one of them, a former soldier who had spent years traversing Colombia, fighting left-wing guerrillas and other enemies in rugged conditions. So when Duvernay Capador, 40 years old, reached out with a job offer, high paying and important, he told them, many of the men jumped at the opportunity and asked a few questions. So the New York Times interviewed a dozen retired Colombian soldiers who were recruited for a potentially dangerous security operation in Haiti shortly before the president's assassination last week. The soldiers interviewed did not end up participating did not end up participating in some cases because they were part of a second wave of individuals that was supposed to arrive in Haiti at a later point, they said. So now Duvernay Capador was killed in the aftermath of the assassination of President Moise. The exact relationship between Capador, the ex-soldiers, and the death of the president is still unclear, but Mr. Capador died in the aftermath. Mr. Capador died in the aftermath of the assassination, and Haitian officials have 18 Colombians in custody in connection with the president's death. So read the rest of this also. So this as more and more information comes out, it causes me to have more and more questions. Retired soldiers in Colombia say they were recruited for work in Haiti. All right. Okay. So I want to go to this last story, and we'll probably continue this tomorrow because we're out of time here. There was a piece from on Sunday show when we talked about Zaila Avant Garde winning the Scripps Spelling Bee. I also talked about Magnolia Cox in 1936, who competed in the Spelling Bee as well. And I talked about Marie C. Bolden. Okay. Now, Marie C. Bolden, we talked about Marie C. Bolden on Sunday's show, Sunday, July 11th. Marie C. Bolden won the first national spelling bee. It was in 1908, and it was organized. It was before Scripps existed. This was organized by the National Education Association, Okay. And she also competed. They had spelling bee teams, and they had an individual competition. Okay. And she won the individual competition, and it caused racial controversy because she was African American. Okay. She was 14 years old. I want to pull up this clip here. This is from Cleveland.com. Cleveland girls spelling victory created racial. Cleveland girls spelling victory created racial controversy, national headlines in 1908. Okay, let me pull this one up here. This is from Cleveland.com. So 1908 is the same year as the Springfield, Illinois race riot. And this is the year before the NAACP was founded. So this is a little known African-American history fact. The first national spelling bee was won by an African-American girl. Cleveland girls spelling victory created racial controversy, national headlines in 1908. Okay. And it's the story of Marie C. Bolden. And you see it says Marie C. Bolden, champion speller. 8th grade Marie C. Bolden of Howe Hough School led Cleveland's city spelling team to a national championship in 1908. And this is a picture of her from the Plain Dealer newspaper. So 17 years before the first ever Scripps spelling bee. Okay. And this article is from May 30th, 2017. May 30th, 2017. 17 years before the first ever Scripps spelling bee, a 14-year-old Cleveland girl created headlines and racial controversy around the world by winning a spelling championship. Marie C. Bolden achieved a perfect score in tests of more than 100 words as part of the National Education Association's annual meeting in Cleveland. She helped Cleveland's team win first place against 8th grade teams from all over the country and Cleveland's now defunct Hippodrome Theater. Now, Pittsburgh took second. Cleveland took first, and when they had the teams competition. Cleveland came in first, Pittsburgh came in second, New Orleans came in third. Okay, and because Marie C. Bolden was African American, the event caused furor in New Orleans, which still lived under Jim Crow racial separation laws. So, as I said on Sunday's show, we see a connection between Haiti and what's taking place in Haiti, and also Zaila Avant Garde, because Zaila lives in Harvey, Louisiana. Louisiana became territory of the United States, territory in the Union in 1803 because of the Louisiana Purchase of 1803. But the Louisiana Purchase of 1803 came about. France sold 828,000 square miles of land for less than 3 cents an acre to the U.S. for a total of $15 million because the Haitians were beating the hell out of the French in the Haitian Revolution. Louisiana, where Zaila lives, became part of the Union because of what the Haitians were doing to the French in the Haitian Revolution, 1791 to 1804. So all of this is connected. Now, this historical event was planned, the spelling bee, 1908. This historical event was planned to foster the better teaching of spelling in schools, said Warren E. Hicks, a former Cleveland assistant school superintendent who ran the event. He said this in a radio interview at the time. Quote, but it resulted in more than that. It demonstrated again that in our schools, every boy and every girl has a fair and even chance. Now, the 2017 Scripps Championship Spelling Bee begins. So they're talking about 2017. Okay, they had 291 spellers in 2017. In 1908, the NEA, the National Education Association, which was the teachers union, the National Education Association organizers invited the nation's cities to send 8th grade teams to participate in a spelling bee at its convention, according to a radio interview conducted with Warren C. Hicks. 34 cities did so, including Boston, Buffalo, Cincinnati, New Orleans, and Pittsburgh. Now, Warren Hicks said that when the New Orleans team learned Cleveland's team included Marie C. Bolden, the New Orleans team threatened to leave the competition. Warren Hicks said Cleveland Superintendent William Harris Elson would not comply with New Orleans' request to remove Marie C. Bolden from the team. Quote, he said she had won her place in a fair and open contest. She had won her place in a fair and open contest. he telegraphed New Orleans, and the next day a telegram came saying they would stay and spell, and they did. Now, on June 29th, 1908, 510 children from all over the country ascended to the Hippodrome stage. First, they took a 100-word written spelling test, a 100-word written spelling test. As each word was pronounced, a telegraph broadcast it around the world. After the written test was graded, each speller took to the stage to spell 4 words aloud in front of an audience. At the end of the day, Marie C. Bolden, the 14-year-old African-American girl, same age as Zaila Avant Garde, Marie was declared the competition's individual winner after spelling all words correctly. Cleveland was declared the winning team. She was on the Cleveland team, the 8th grade Cleveland team. Because Cleveland was declared the winning team because its competitors missed 3 words on average. Pittsburgh came in second, missing an average of 4 words, and New Orleans was third, missing 5 words on average. Quote, the little girl was congratulated by hundreds, even members of the New Orleans spelling team shaking her hand when President Francis H. Heserot, Heserot, of the Cleveland Board of Education pinned to her dress the gold medal, which denotes the championship of American public school spellers, end quote, said an account in the Omaha Daily Bee newspaper. Booker T. Washington lauded Marie C. Bolden in his speech the following day. He said, quote, I think you will admit we spell out of the same spelling book that you do. He said, according to the book, How Do You Spell Roosevelt? Ruzevelet, A History of Spelling in America, or Roosevelt. And I think you will also admit that we spell a little better. Now, in a Plain Dealer interview, the newspaper, the Plain Dealer, Marie C. Bolden, whose father was a letter carrier and whose mother ran a senior citizen home, she says she studied hard for the contest with help from her parents and friends. She says she wanted to win because it was Cleveland against the other cities and because my father and mother wanted me to. She said, when I felt nervous at the Hippodrome, it steadied me to think of these things. I just kind of gritted my teeth and made up my mind that I would not miss a word. Now, Marie's victory made national news because it upset the day's stereotypes about what African-American children could accomplish. It upset the stereotypes of the early 1900s of what African-American children could accomplish. Now, repercussions were most serious in New Orleans, where the city's school board censured its superintendent for letting the 8th grade school children, the New Orleans team, they censured the city school board censured its superintendent for letting the team participate and compete against the Cleveland team that had the African-American girl on the team. This was according to a contemporary account in the Seattle Republican newspaper. When a group of African-American educators in New Orleans wanted to hold a spelling bee in Marie C. Bolden's honor, the city's mayor, the mayor of New Orleans at the time, quote, withheld a permit for the affair on the ground that it might prove an incentive to a race riot with consequences dreadful to New Orleans, end quote, said another account in the Capital newspaper from Mitchell, South Dakota. So African-American educators in New Orleans wanted to hold a spelling bee in honor of Marie C. Bolden, the city's mayor at the time withheld a permit for the affair on the ground that it might prove an incentive to a race riot with consequences dreadful to New Orleans. Now, the Louisiana spellers were perhaps held back, quote, by the excitement of their clash with race prejudice in the northern city. The New Orleans newspaper speculated, according to NOLA.com, the district superintendent, who, quote, did not care to talk about, end quote, the episode the day of the spelling bee, the paper said, figured that the New Orleanians had not done their best because they were, quote, too far away from home in a strange land to them, end quote, with a large crowd in attendance. So this is what the mayor, this is the excuse the mayor is going with why the New Orleans team lost to the Cleveland team, and the Cleveland team had the black girl on it. Not that the Cleveland team was better, not that they were smarter, not that the African-American girl won fair and square, but because the New Orleanians, the 8th grade New Orleans team, he surmised, had not done their best because they were too far away from home in a strange land to them, with a large crowd in the audience. Now, Marie C. Bolden, the 14-year-old African-American girl who won the first national spelling bee in this country in 1908, Marie C. Bolden lost her formal title after it emerged. The professor who announced the written test spelling words gave the word definition for the word capital, C-A-P-I-T-O-L, quote, which altered results. The change gave 2 other Cleveland girls perfect scores and left the championship in the city's hands. But Marie C. Bolden kept her medal despite the change, and acclaim for her continued. Warren C. Hicks published the book entitled Champion Spelling Book. He published a book in 1909 that described teaching methods that led to the Cleveland team's victory at the National Education Association Spelling Bee. Now, Warren C. Hicks said that Marie C. Bolden and her mother visited his office the next January and opened a large satchel. Quote, there were tokens in gold and silver and ivory from the rulers and chiefs of tribes of Africa, he recalled in the radio interview. And we kept the exhibit, that exhibit in school headquarters for many weeks that our boys and girls and teachers might see it. Warren C. Hicks wrote a book about spelling that described the teaching methods that led to the Cleveland students' victory, the 8th grade Cleveland students' victory. He ended up moving to Wisconsin, where he became a state education official and died in 1967 at the age of 101. Now, his great-granddaughter, journalist Jamie Stein, learned of the Cleveland imbroglio after his death when she found a speech that Warren C. Hicks delivered on the subject. Okay, she found a speech that Warren C. Hicks delivered on the subject. She and her sister researched the incident and wrote a screenplay about it that was never produced. Now, Stein tracked down a granddaughter of Marie C. Bolden's who said Marie moved to Canada, married, and led a quiet life. Quote, by winning the whole spelling bee, she made an incredible statement, said Stein. It was about much more than spelling in the end. So check out this article here from Cleveland.com. Cleveland girls spelling victory created racial controversy, national headlines in 1908. It's a story about Marie C. Bolden, who won the first national spelling bee. All right. Hey, I want to remind you, if you like this type of information, be sure to register for the 10-week online course that I teach. We have a new class to start, a new section to start up on Sundays. 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Okay. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. This is a 10-week online course that I teach. We deal with thousands of years of history and do what led up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. So if you visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, we have the information right on the homepage of our website. Scroll down, you'll see the information for the radio show. You see the information for the online course. It meets 10 consecutive Sundays, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Click right there on register here and click on enroll on the next page. As soon as you enroll, you can start watching the course content. We do the class live. All the sessions are recorded. We do the class live. All the sessions are recorded, and you can go back and watch the classes over and over again also. Okay. So that's Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. I do a PowerPoint presentation. We have guest speakers, book references, articles, video clips, and we deal with the history of what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. So we deal with ancient Africa, deal with great African civilizations, ancient Kemet, ancient Egypt, Nubia, Ethiopia, etc. We deal with the 800-year occupation of Europe by the Africans known as the Moors. And the Moors are taking the teachings from ancient Kemet, ancient Egypt into Europe. And this is going to bring Europe out of the Dark Ages to our detriment, because everything we taught Europeans came back to kick us in the behind. And we're going to deal with what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. Okay. So as soon as you register, you can start, or you can watch the class we just did this past Sunday. Class is regularly $130. It's on sale $80. All right, look, we have to get out of here. Remember, at the African History Network, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right now it's corrects wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. And you can also support us through Cash App, $ TheAHNShow through Cash App. Then also through PayPal, paypal.me/TheAHNShow as well. All right, right now it's corrects wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. And we'll talk to you next time. Peace.